Good morning. I'd like to welcome everyone to the first meeting of the renewed Mojave County Public Lands and Recreation Commission. Today is April 4th, 2024. The Public Lands and Recreation Commission may by motion recess into executive session to receive legal advice from the board's attorneys on any item contained on this agenda pursuant to ARS 38-431.03A3. I'd like to do a roll call. Madam or Commissioner Clerk.
Good morning. Chairman Linenfelter.
Present.
Commissioner Barlow. Here. Commissioner Smith. Here. Commissioner Diaz.
Here.
Commissioner Martin. Here. Commissioner Strecker. Here. And Director Letowski.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Great. For the commissioners, on your microphone, there's a little gray button. When the light turns green, that means your mic is live. And if you want to turn that off, just push that gray button again until you're ready to speak again. If you'll join me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item 4 on our regular agenda this morning is election of vice chair. In speaking with the commissioner clerk, commissioners are not permitted to self-nominate. However, any of the commissioners can nominate a fellow commissioner for vice chair. It would need to have a second. If there are two interested, what I'm going to do this morning is allow probably a couple minutes for each one of the interested commissioners to state their case. And then we'll basically take the motions in the order that they came in. So with that, I would open it up to the commission to nominate vice chair.
I'll do it.
Commissioner Diaz, did you have a comment?
I said if someone wants to nominate me, I would be a pleasure to do this vice chair.
Are there any commissioners that are interested in filling the role of vice chair? Let me ask that. Commissioner Streckler, you have any interest? No. Okay. Commissioner Martin? No. Okay. Commissioner Diaz, you said you would be interested? Mm-hmm. Commissioner Smith, would you be interested?
Yes.
Commissioner Barlow, would you be interested? Okay. At this time, I'm going to give Commissioner Diaz just a couple of minutes to state his case, and we'll give Commissioner Smith an opportunity as well. Thank you. Commissioner Diaz.
All right. Thank you, Chair. So I'm currently the chairman of the Planning and Zoning Commission in Lake Havasu City, and we also run the board of the Mojave Military Museum. I'm really involved in Mojave County in a lot of different things. Was honored to be asked to join this commission and use my expertise in business and just forward thinking and being critical thinking also to and I know how to run a meeting. So if Travis is never able to come for some reason, I would have to learn how to run a meeting based on Robert's Rules of Orders, and I always give it my 100%. So that's it.
Thank you, Commissioner Diaz. Commissioner Smith?
Thank you. I was the chair of this commission back when it was formed in 2017, and at that time it was more over the travel management plan from BLM to keep our trails locally open. I have quite a bit of experience in power. I worked for a power company for over 30 years. I was involved with the line crews with building and construction of a lot of the power lines in northeastern California. And I would be willing to be the vice chair, but I don't really want to be the head chair. I'd rather see Mr. Diaz be that this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Smith. Okay, we've heard from both of those commissioners that would be interested in fulfilling the role of vice chair. Do I have a nomination?
Make a motion to ask Commissioner Smith to be the vice chair.
We have a motion for recommendation of Commissioner Smith for vice chair. Do I have a second?
I second.
If we have a motion and a second, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All
Aye.
opposed? The ayes appear to have it, do have it, so ordered. Congratulations, Commissioner Smith. And thank you for your interest, Commissioner Diaz. Item number 5 on our regular agenda is an introduction to the departments of Mojave County that are going to be involved with this commission, starting with the Public Works Director, Steve Latosky. Steve, I believe you may have a presentation that you'd like to give or an update.
Yes, I have an update, Chairman Lingenfelter and Commissioners. Public Works meets quarterly with both the Kingman Field District as well as the Arizona Strip Field District. We meet in conjunction with Development Services and Flood Control just on active developments, and primarily the focus of the Public Works Department is on matters relating to road operations, park operations, or county facility development. The latest update we have from the Kingman Field District, we've been working on a wildfire protection agreement for Wallaby Mountain Park, as well as 2 free use permits that enable the Public Works Department to perform sand and gravel mining. We use that for road material to repair our roadways. We are also entertaining a roadway, a maintenance yard expansion at Golden Valley by way of acquiring about 56 additional acres, expanding our existing recreational and public purposes lease. I do provide 2 notes with regard to the Wallaby Tribe because they are active participants in the Kingman Field Office quarterly meeting. Wallaby Tribe is currently progressing on their 69 kV power line extension up to the Grand Canyon West. And they have also expressed on multiple occasions concerns with regard to any lithium mining developments on public lands. Turning to the Arizona Strip District, only 2 updates there. We have a ongoing right-of-way that BLM is inherently interested into the development of Front Street, but that's being governed by a road maintenance petition where either the residents or another private entity would develop Front Street. We have issued a position by which that road petition doesn't have a fixed time frame or a deadline to complete, so we are advocating to BLM to keep that right-of-way in place for future development of Front Street. And then we are working with another private entity toward the acquisition of right-of-way for a Desert Springs Road. And it's an extension from the Desert Springs community in the Littlefield area out to a sand and gravel pit. And then one last thing with the Havasu District, we have an active recreational public purposes lease application in for a future government complex off of Boundary Cone Road is to acquire 7.4 acres. And then lastly, in your packet, I merely did some research in advance of the meeting today and just wanted to call your attention to the U.S. Department of Energy does have a GIS-based tool by which you can access information nationwide, but namely for Mojave County on the potential for various renewable energies, from solar to wind turbine to even geothermal, which is, of course, is a heavy water user. And then lastly, I'll conclude by just pointing out an example of a BLM-based California project by which they integrated a groundwater recharge as part of what appears to be another renewable energy project. So BLM may be receptible to potential groundwater recharge projects. But that's all I had, Chairman, for an update.
Thank you, Director Latosky. Do any of the commissioners have any questions for Director Latosky concerning his report? Hearing none, we'll move on to Development Services Director. Good morning, Director Walsh and your staff. Thank you for being here today. Is there anything that you'd like to share with the commissioners?
Good morning, Chairman Lingenfelter and members of the commission. I represent the Development Services Department. I have my Planning and Zoning Manager with me, Scott Holtree. Development Services, we encompass planning and zoning, building, environmental quality, and flood control. And one of our recent main focuses has been the increase in the solar activity, the renewable energies that are going in. We are currently working on some revisions to our planning and zoning ordinance, and Manager Holtree will prepare, or has a presentation for you here shortly in the agenda. But we've done quite a bit of research in both what's allowed, or, what we want to see on private lands, what the board would like to see. I need to rephrase that. What the board would like to see on private lands, as well as a lot of the requirements for various public lands, both BLM and state lands, and what's required and how those processes work. So be happy to support this commission in any of those needs. Additionally, as Director Latowski mentioned, some of the potential for groundwater recharge, the Flood Control District has been very active in looking at those opportunities and those possibilities of capturing flooding, stormwater, and infiltrating that into the aquifer and recharging our aquifers with that as well. So we're here. We're happy to provide whatever support we can to help the commission in getting the information that they need to make their recommendations. So thank you.
Thank you, Director Walsh and staff. Do any of the commissioners have any questions for Development Services before we move on? Hearing none, we'll move on to our Mojave County Parks Administrator, Jeremy Palmer. Good morning, Jeremy. Do you have anything that you'd like to share with the commission this morning?
Good morning, Chairman Lingenfelter and Commissioners. Jeremy Palmer, the Parks Administrator.
Jeremy,
Yes.
sorry to interrupt. If you could bring the mic a little closer, we can't hear you very well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, so we're a division of Public Works under Steve Latowski. We manage 2 regional parks, the Mojave County Fairgrounds, about 30 miles of trails, a few thousand acres of open space within the county, and I'm happy to be a resource for the commissioners. No updates.
Terrific. Thank you, Jeremy.
Thank you.
Do any of the commissioners have any questions for our Parks Administrator before we move on? All right. Hearing none. We're going to get into the items of discussion this morning. I want to just mention to everyone that even though we don't have a call to the public, I'm going to be working with the commission clerk, and for regular agendized items, we're going to allow any public to have 3 minutes to speak publicly on any of the items of real substance in the future. So just to make a note of that. Item number 6 was supposed to be a presentation by the Bureau of Land Management. I've been told that they were unable to make it this morning to our meeting, but they're working with all of their district offices, and they are going to be doing a presentation for this commission during our May 2nd meeting, our second meeting. Madam Clerk, do we have anything else on that item? Is there a presentation, or are we going to do... That's all we had on that item, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Exactly.
And then 7 was supposed to be a discussion and possible action regarding the BLM Kingman Travel Management Implementation Plan. Again, with BLM unable to attend this morning, we're going to be postponing this item to our May 2nd commission meeting. Item number 8 is a discussion and possible action regarding the planning, installation, use, promotion, and regulation of renewable energy projects on public and private lands. For this item, we do have a presentation by our Development Services staff. Director Walsh.
I'll come up here just for a second. I'd like to introduce my Planning and Zoning Manager, Scott Holtree. He'll be providing this presentation for the commission.
Morning, Scott.
Morning, Mr. Chair, members of the Commission. Thank you for this opportunity to be able to present to you today. As you may know, the county currently has a moratorium on energy projects, renewable energy projects, and I think what it came down to is we're getting quite a few energy projects, interested energy projects here in Mojave County, and we wanted to take a look at our regulations, take a look at what we can do to make sure that we're protecting our resources here in Mojave County. The objectives of that moratorium, again, I think we're looking at trying to protect the resources that we have here in Mojave County. We also wanted to make sure that we're protecting the health and safety of our communities. our residences, the people that live here, and then also just establish some regulations and requirements for energy projects to ensure any potential negative impacts of energy projects in Mojave County are mitigated. Staff did a lot of research. We looked at several different counties, all of the counties in Arizona, as well as the cities here in Mojave County and BLM. And really what we were looking for was we wanted to see where they were allowing these energy projects to go. We wanted to see if they had any certain setbacks from residential properties. We wanted to see if they had decommissioning plans and any additional requirements that they had for energy projects. And we wanted to try to see if there was any improvements that we could make to our ordinances and our general plan to make sure that we are, again, protecting those resources that we have. Just to kind of go over some of the biggest proposed changes that we're looking for. Currently, with a energy project in Mojave County, we require an energy overlay zone, which requires you to go through a public process, come to the commission, to the board, and be able to receive that energy overlay. When we researched other counties, we found that most of the other counties are allowing for energy projects in their industrial zones, and found that that would be suitable for our Mojave County as well, as an energy project, a solar or wind energy project is about intense or less intense than a lot of the uses that are allowed in our industrial zones anyways. For example, in our MX zone, you can have a refinery, you can have a landfill, you can have a power plant in itself. And so allowing the solar and wind projects in those industrial zones outright, we felt was the best option, as well as eliminating essentially this overlay zone. So really we're bringing the energy projects to our industrial type zones and trying to keep them away from our residential or the lands that provide grazing for our cattle or that are closer to our residential communities. The other thing that we looked at was some of the setbacks and some of the research that we did. We wanted to make sure that if an industrial type zone was adjacent to any type of residential zone, we wanted to make sure there was a good buffer from any of our solar or wind projects, and we were requiring a 100-foot setback. The other proposed change is to allow for a special use permit in the more rural parts of the county. There are some parts of the county that do not have residential communities, and that could potentially be an option for a solar project or a wind project, but require it go through a process. So it would go to the commission, or the Planning and Zoning Commission, and then to the Board of Supervisors. And we wanted to make sure that everybody within the vicinity of this project would be notified. So requiring a 1 mile notification to anybody that would be in the radius of the proposed project would be notified, and have the opportunity to be able to come and comment at the commission or the Board of Supervisors. We are also requiring that if they do require any letters from the Transmission Line Sitting Committee or any federal requirements, they would have to provide that beforehand before they come to the meeting. The other thing that we were looking at is making sure that they did have a decommissioning plan. We currently require one. It's not too in depth of what is required for the decommissioning plan. We wanted to make sure that there was some requirements that if the use is not, if the proposed project is not producing for more than 12 months, then they would need to take in effect that decommissioning plan. So we don't just have solar or wind projects out there that are gathering dust or creating a hazard for the area. And the last major change that we're looking at is the hydrogen projects. We wanted to make sure that we could regulate where these hydrogen projects are being located. For that purpose, we took them out of the definition of a renewable energy project, and strictly put them in our MX, our heaviest manufacturing zone, with requiring a special use permit. That way, if there are industrial type zoning, or like, for example, our industrial park off of Griffith, they couldn't just go in and do a hydrogen project. They have to come to the commission, they have to come to the Board of Supervisors for that approval first, before they could even ask for permits or start the site plan process. Just in conclusion, again, staff was really looking at how we can mitigate some of these potential conflicts with energy projects, making sure that we're keeping them away from our residential neighborhoods, putting them in locations that already allow for the same intensity of uses, like your power plants and refineries, but then also providing a way to be able to allow for them in the more rural parts of the county. One thing we wanted to point out is, if these changes do go through, it would in effect take away that moratorium, because the moratorium is on the energy overlay zone, and we're getting rid of that zone, but allowing these projects in our industrial zones. Just to point out as well that most of these projects that we deal with are on private land, but we do have instances where the federal land or the state land has come to the county wanting to meet our requirements. For example, the wind project, as you're going up the 93 towards Vegas, off to the east there, all those wind turbines did receive a rezone from Mojave County, even though it is on BLM land, and did go through our process. They don't have to go through our process, but if they do require it of the development, then we would enforce these same regulations on the public land as well as the private land. That, I believe, is my presentation for the changes that we're proposing. This is going to the Planning and Zoning Commission on next Wednesday, and then to the Board of Supervisors the following month, the first meeting of May. And we have received some feedback from energy developers. We're providing that to the commissioners and to the Board of Supervisors. And any changes that we need to make, it's still open to make some changes as well. So with that, I'm open to any questions that you may have as well.
Thank you, Scott. I'd open it up to the commission for any questions.
Chairman,
Commissioner Martin.
I have a question about the legality. I'm assuming that all of this has been ran through legal so that we know that what you're proposing here is constitutionally correct, and that there's not going to be any legal challenges as to these designations?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Martin, absolutely. Everything that we're going to be working with will go through our attorney's office. It's also just looking at all the other counties that we've looked at. We're not implementing anything that is more strict than any of the other counties that already have regulations in place.
Any other questions from commissioners? No. Scott, I've got a couple of things. I know you said that there's going to be some changes. Have we reached out to the local utility companies for their input yet? I think that that's something that we also need to do. I know with the moratorium, we gave the local utility companies an opportunity to talk about how it would impact them, and we actually did a little carve out for them if they were going to be serving local Mojave County residents with power. Is that something that we're going to be looking at doing as well?
Mr. Chair, Commission, that's something that we definitely entertain. We have not personally reached out to the local utility companies with the moratorium. As far as I'm concerned, the energy project itself is more meant for the outside agencies that are coming in. If a company wanted to still put solar array on their own property to provide energy for themselves, that's out of these proposed changes. But if a utility company like Unisource or MEC wanted to do a solar field just for their generation, they would need to follow these requirements. So we will definitely reach out to them and make sure that they have the opportunity to comment on any of the proposed changes.
Appreciate that. This is important work. Just a couple more questions. The reason for the moratorium, just for the commission and the public, can you talk about a little bit the applications that we received for these utility scale projects prior to the Federal Inflation Reduction Act and then after the Inflation Reduction Act? If memory serves, after that Federal Inflation Reduction Act, we saw utility scale applications for these types of projects double, at least double. Is that accurate?
Mr. Chair, that is correct. We've, I want to say, prior to that act, we maybe had a handful of these projects come through our office, maybe 1 or 2 a year. After that act, I think we've received, and also with the moratorium going into effect, I would estimate that is probably around 10 or so projects have reached out to us just since that act. And so prior to that, we were 1 or 2 a year, and now we're definitely receiving a lot more projects. I have pulled up on this screen, if we want to pull it up on the projection. These are some of the projects that are just being proposed through our BLM office. All these are on BLM property, but they're all going through that proposal and application process with our BLM office. I believe one of them, the Mineral Park one down by Chloride, has been denied. We are unfamiliar with the status on the rest of the projects, but our last meeting with BLM, this is what they had in the works with them.
I see one project missing up in the Centennial Park, Cane Beds, Colorado City area. I think that there's a up to 70,000 acre wind project that's not reflected on this map as well. So we need to add that too. For the commission and the public that may not be aware, I believe Mojave County has a status with the federal government, the BLM, and of a cooperating agency. And can you explain that process to them, how Mojave County prepares comments as a cooperating agency, and that those comments are supposed to be given higher weight, and that this is really one of the main functions and an important function that this commission is going to be serving as well, to help the board?
Absolutely, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. With each of these projects, BLM will reach out to Development Services and to the county in a whole to see their take or comments on the project itself. In reality, Mojave County has the opportunity to weigh in on the decision-making process and provide a letter of support or a letter of concern or whatever it might be for some of these major projects that are coming throughout the county. And so I believe this commission would be play a big role on some of these projects when we are notified from the BLM or the state offices for those comments, that we could present these projects to this commission and be able to come up with any additional requirements that maybe the Mojave County is looking for, or if we're not in support of the project because of certain reasons, then we can express those opinions and that objection to that BLM office, and be a cooperating agency for the BLM, and show them that this is coming in Mojave County. This is our home. We really have an interest in this project and whether or not it goes forward. So, absolutely.
Appreciate it. Appreciate that, Scott. And to that end, this commission is really going to play an important role. assisting the Board of Supervisors with really rolling up our sleeves, doing the analysis, doing the research, and really the deep dive on some of these things to really make sure that those cooperating agency comments reflect everything that Mojave County needs to make sure that is included in those comments from the Board of Supervisors. The last thing I want to ask you to mention is a lot of these utility scale solar projects are being sited on federal lands. As I understand it, they did a process, the federal government did a process a while ago, and they basically said there are no solar zones, so even to be able to do a utility scale solar project, they have to first go through this waiver process of some sort. Can you just briefly explain that to the commission and the public?
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, I'm not as familiar with that process. I do know it is called the variance process. And so I believe every project on this map that we had pulled up had to go through that variance process. And during that variance process is when the county, I believe, has the opportunity to make our comments as a cooperating agency. But as far as the details of that variance process, I'm not familiar with.
Appreciate it, and thank you for the presentation. I feel confident that with the work that this county is doing, that it's going to be a leader. Mojave County is going to be a leader with rural counties and how these types of utility scale projects are really vetted and analyzed to make sure we're taking a hard look at all of the impacts on both the human environment and the natural environment. Hopefully we can be a role model to other rural counties. Again, I'll ask one more time if there's any other questions from the commissioners.
I just have one point of
Commissioner Diaz.
One point of clarification, and you might be able to answer this yourself. But so on a conditional use permit, it just goes to the planning and zoning, and that's it. There's the final say. But on a special use permit, as you mentioned, it does go. The final say does go to the Board of Supervisors.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Diaz, in all applications through the county, if it's a special use permit, if it's a rezone, the county actually doesn't have any conditional use permits at this time. But special use permit or a rezone, it would go to the commission, and always the final decision is with the Board of Supervisors.
I just want to get that on the record. And then one last thing, you said you had some feedback from some of the energy companies. Or can you share with us? Is it positive, negative, neutral?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, Commissioner Diaz, we have received some comments from some of the energy developers. Some of their concerns are the mile. We do require, I think I did fail to mention this, but in our special use permit, if they are applying for one that is in our AR or RE zone, we're requiring a 1 mile distance from from a residence. So if there's a residence within 1 mile of the proposed project, they're not able to do it. And so that's one thing that they have objected to, as well as I think the notification requirements. We're requiring that they notify everybody within 1 mile as well. But for the most part, they seem to agree with the changes, allowing them to have projects in our industrial type zones, but have objected to that 1 mile distance from residences.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Any other questions from the commissioners? No?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. Excuse me.
No
Commissioner
problem.
Smith.
Oh, one of my concerns is who's going to be responsible, or do we have a plan for a implementation of a EIR, environmental impact report, before this starts? And where is the funding going to come for that? And exactly how are we going to implement to see make sure that these plans don't have a negative impact on the long-term environment, especially in my concern would be what the ground's going to look like at the end and our water situation, because these things take a lot of water.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Smith, absolutely. So we looked into the requirement of an environmental impact statement for each of these projects, and what it came down to is if we end up requiring we did look into the legality of it, and if we end up requiring a environmental impact statement for each of these solar projects, we would also have to require it on any development that comes through Mojave County. So your large warehousing projects that we're currently building in the Griffith Industrial Park. We have some structures or buildings that are over 250,000 square feet. They would be required to do the same type of study. So it wasn't something that we were looking at entertaining here in Arizona. None of the other counties within the Arizona have environmental impact requirements. Just, I think, because of that reason that if you're required of one developer, you have to require it of all developers. So a subdivision that would need to go in, or a large industrial development, they would all have to meet those same requirements. And so we stayed away from those. As far as the water is concerned, we do, going deeper into some of the changes that we're looking at, we do require, or we're proposing to require, that all energy projects provide a statement of how much water is going to be used for their project, whether it's solar, whether it's wind, prior to the application for that special use permit or a rezone. And therefore, we would be able to determine, okay, yeah, this looks like a suitable project for this area and the water usage. The other thing that we were looking at was those hydrogen projects do use quite a bit of water, and that's one of the major concerns that we had with the hydrogen projects, and therefore we wanted to make sure that hydrogen project is going through a more intense or extensive use or process by going through that special use process and coming to the board and providing all the information that would be required. And ultimately, the board would have all authority to say yes or no on those projects based on, okay, if it's in our Wallapai Basin and you're proposing this much water usage, we just simply can't do it, and they can have that discretion of saying this is not a suitable project for this area. So hopefully that answered your question.
Scott, I think you also mentioned the decommissioning plan. One of the proposed changes is the decommissioning plan.
Right. Mr. Chair, absolutely. We currently do require a decommissioning plan. It's just not very robust of what we require. In the new proposal, it will make sure that they have funding for decommissioning these projects, making sure that there is a strict timeline on when they would need to be decommissioned, how they would decommission it, and that proposal would have to be before us before they receive any permits. So,
does that answer your question, Commissioner? Commissioner Barlow, did you have a question?
Yes. I'm just wondering if there's a requirement that on the public lands projects, if they have to benefit the local area. For instance, up on the North Canyon, the proposed wind farm is going to be tied into a line that doesn't even benefit that area.
Yeah, so Mr. Chair, Commissioner Barlow, unfortunately, I don't believe they do. And so those are requirements that the BLM would have to have with the county's jurisdiction. If any projects are going on BLM, we do not have the authority to regulate them unless they come, unless they're requiring it of the developer that they have to go through the county processes. So unfortunately, we do not have the ability to have that requirement. Like Chairman Lingenfelter mentioned, if our biggest tool that I believe this commission and the county has is the opportunity to be able to be a responsible cooperating agency to the BLM. So when we do receive these projects like the one up near the Utah border, we can provide our feedback and input of, okay, this is how it's going to affect us. This is how it's going to affect our citizens. We would like that this project benefit our county or our residents here, and this is what we were proposing. So this is our opportunity. And I believe this is what this commission's purpose could be and should be for as well.
Does that answer your question, Commissioner Barlow? Okay, great. Any other questions from the commission? No? Okay, before we adjourn, I know everybody was provided a copy of the bylaws, and it's not really mentioned here, but all of you as commissioners, thank you again for your time and for volunteering on this commission. It's an important new commission. It's going to be doing a lot of important work in light of everything that we're seeing happening out there with our public lands. As a commissioner, you will be allowed to add items to our subsequent agendas through the chair, myself, and also the commission clerk. So if you want to add an item to one of our next agendas, please just contact myself or the commission clerk, and we'll make sure that we work with you to get that on a future agenda. Is there anything else for the good of the order prior to adjournment? Commissioner Martin.
As in regards to the oath of the office, we're going to do that today. That's going to be done today before we leave.
Yes, you all have some homework to do, as well as getting that notarized today.
Great. Thank you for the question. Anything else for the good of the order? Seeing none, we're adjourned. Thank you.